Well, shucks, howdy. Welcome back. How y'all doing? I am so glad to welcome you to Sudden but Inevitable, the sci-fi rewatch podcast dedicated to single-season space westerns that were canceled mercilessly before their time. I, of course, am your host, Captain Bootscoot, a.k.a. Vanilla Husband, a.k.a. Jesse. And with me, as always this week, is my longtime friend and co-host, the head of the Twist My Arm Network and the host of Quest Me, Josh. How are you doing this week, Josh?
I'm good. I'm not driving in a snowstorm this week, so it's good to be here at the beginning of the show to, give my opinions throughout the show instead of at the very end, which then leads to like a nuclear bomb going off on my Twitter the next couple days.
Some people would kill for Twitter engagement like that, man. People were all over you, and it
I
wasn't
know.
like
I
it
was like,
wasn't
what did
live.
I do?
Days later, and for a couple days at a time. It was cool though.
Yeah. I had fun. It was a great time. So,
I gotta
that was
say,
my
I
week.
agree. Well, we couldn't offer a truly balanced perspective on this week's episode of Sudden but Inevitable without the most wholesome member of our little family, and that, of course, is Ricky D from Best Flicks with Ricky D. Ricky D from Best Flicks with Ricky D. How is your Friday?
I am so glad it is Friday. I've just been watching for the end of the day all day, and this is a weekend that I definitely earned. So, good Friday.
If I may, my friend, I feel that you earn every weekend that you make it to. I mean, we made it to Friday, and that makes us mighty. Now, strolling slowly up to meet us this evening in the guest chair and talking us right out of our car keys with a little flirting and misdirection, of course, is the host of Green Shirt, a newbie's trek through the next generation, Cameron Harrison. Cameron, welcome back to Sudden but Inevitable. Thank you for being here. How are you doing?
Oh,
Nice
shall I
mug.
come back after the mincing and preening part of the day is over, gentlemen?
No, I specifically need you for the mincing, but
Oh.
almost exclusively for the preening.
Okay, so like
I
90%
feel like-
preening, 10% mincing?
Well, I think
60-40.
Cameron's forte might be mincing.
Could be.
Oh, my forte is preening, so I think this is going to work out really well.
Here we go.
Cameron, I have to point out already in the chat, we have a whoop whoop Cameron.
I will
That, of
take
course,
it.
is from our very good friend Callie D, who is waking up at 4:30 in the morning in the faraway land of Germany to be with us live. Thank you, Callie D, as always, for being here with us. I would also like to say hello to our friend JB, who it only took me a week and a half, you guys. I figured out that is actually John T. Bolds of the Green Shirt podcast, the producer John T. Bolds. He says, let's go, but he did say that like 5 minutes before showtime, so we don't know if he's even still
was
here.
ready.
These people are ready to go, so let's jump right into this after we say hello to Phil K. Hi, Cameron. Glad to see you and the rest of the crew tonight. Philip,
What up, Phil?
you are the best. Thank you for being here, man. I gotta say, if we were gonna hire a person to run the library of Sudden but Inevitable, it would be Philip K. And that's all there is to that. And to that point, those of you who have been here before or listened in podcast land or watched on YouTube, I'd just like to say, guess what? Phil is coming back one more time before this season of Sudden but Inevitable is over. Now, that
I was
having
going
been
to say,
said,
is the chat entirely populated by past guests now?
no, because our very good friend Rona is in the
There we
chat as
go.
well. And Rona
Rona.
says good morning. She has not been on the show. Rona, I believe, is in Scotland, 5:30 a.m., 6:30 a.m. Rona, throw it in the chat. Thank you for being here. This is the most supportive chat and just group of people. And again, thank you as always for being here, folks. Now, I'm going to take 2 steps backwards really quickly like the animated cat in the Paula Abdul video. What we do here at Sudden But Inevitable, as I mentioned, is we watch sci-fi shows. Primarily, we watch space westerns, primarily that have had one season, and primarily that were canceled before they were ready to be canceled. To that end, this season at Sudden But Inevitable, we are covering the live-action Cowboy Bebop, and tonight, specifically, we are here to talk about Episode 7, Galileo Hustle. Now, those of you who've been here before, I have to say, please, before you listen to the rest of this episode, go back to Season 2 and listen to an episode called Don't Go Chasing Meteor Falls, because it's going to give you very important, shall we say, cam context for the rest of this episode. That
could.
having been
It could.
said, Cameron, my friend,
Oh.
please, if you don't mind, jump into this week's episode, Galileo Hustle.
Oh, sure. Well, let's just start off with the very first vibes I got. You guys love bringing up the video game references. And immediately I was getting some Fallout vibes from the old-timey radio song and the sci-fi setting. So that was a good start. It's a good start to a great episode.
Did you want a summary of this episode, or?
And a lot of, you know what, Josh? We're trying a new jazzy thing here at Sudden But Inevitable,
okay,
where we
okay.
just talk about the show and people pick it up as they go.
Okay.
It's the newest thing in podcasting, actually. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but
I
figure
certainly had no influence over Jesse in this decision. None
we
at
just
all.
figure that if people are here at episode 7, they're ready to go. And if they're not, they can read the show notes and they'll know what's going to happen. Now, to Cameron's point, yes, lots of video game vibes for me in this episode in particular, and right here at the beginning because of the old-timey music. Lots of like riveted metal, I think, is what was making me think of Fallout, right? I mean, the Bebop itself kind of has that riveted metal look going on in some places.
Oh, sure,
and-
yeah. Rivet
yeah,
Town.
so I definitely agree with that. I did have a moment of just like the worst kind of relatability with Spike, where he's got this migraine going on. I had a migraine at the start of this week, you guys, and that's all I'm going to say about it. But like any of you listening or watching, if you've ever had a migraine, like the fact that you're alive and have not hurt somebody, hats off to you. You're amazing, and you deserve every Friday that you get to, just like Ricky D does. Here's something that's not super Fallout.
See, I thought he was hungover the whole time. Like
Right.
he had a migraine from
Well,
being
well,
hungover.
well, let
I
me
was like,
ask-
oh man,
Before
I
we
would
move
have a
on-
hard time fishing too if I was like that hungover.
Spike can
Like,
handle his
glasses
alcohol.
and the hair's all messed up and like
Yeah.
Spike
So
does
my-
drink alcohol. That's proven by him drinking with whatever her name
Kudo.
is. Yeah.
Oh,
Kudo.
yeah, drinking the Kudo with Anna.
Anna.
Yep.
Okay, but so my first impression with this, like, was we get some nice continuity with Faye. She is continuing her sexual journey, as Spike puts it. But then Spike's migraine. It's been 8 days he's had a migraine. I thought for sure was from his brain scratch.
Brain scratch.
I thought that as well.
Now later she does something to his neck to fix it, so maybe that pulls the rug out a little. But though, I mean, you know, when you're tense because of a migraine, it does kind of settle in the neck. So
That's
He was
actually
locked into that
great-
chair, and that was a very uncomfortable looking chair. So I
fair,
could see
fair.
getting some
And-
sort of neck problem with that.
And that's like specifically the thing about migraines is that it's like the neck and the head, and we got to stop talking about this. But to that point, Cameron, I feel like the last episode and this episode were almost shot together, like as one episode and then edited into 2 episodes, right? Because
Sure.
the scenes with the eunuch feel like they're just continuation of all his scenes from the last episode.
Mhm.
So I think it actually fits really well that Spike is just feeling a little bit of residual brain scratch, and that's why he's got this like migraine from, never. But to your point about Faye's sexual journey, I love that she is somehow the thing about Daniela Pineda's performance, we've talked about how amazing it is and we'll continue to do so, but this moment in particular, right, where the virgin is now no longer a virgin and suddenly an expert because they've had one encounter, right? She's
And
like,
some
"Oh,
fine
yeah."
literature she's been reading.
Exactly. She's flipping through all this stuff. She's going, dude, you got to have more orgasm. That's totally the key. Like, you know what your problem is. And there's
But she
something
can't
about that
figure out
that's
if
so
she's
true
a
of
boob
life.
or a butt girl. So
Right.
like,
I mean,
she doesn't know anything.
Well,
She-
hopefully that
What are
Leather
you, Josh?
Daddy magazine will help her decide if she's a boob girl or a butt girl.
well, it depends on
That's
how
a good
tight the
question,
leather is.
Cameron.
I'm
What
pretty
do you
sure
like
she
to know?
settled on boob. I'm a boob man. I'm with Faye
She-
here.
She did settle on boob. I believe she muttered under her breath.
I think it just depends.
Of course it depends. Live chat, sound off.
We gotta
which
get
one are
this thirst
you?
chat going.
Yeah, let's
Yeah, let's-
thirst this chat up. Our friend John T. Bold says, Episode 7 synopsis, Cam invades sudden but inevitable and takes over with Borg-like efficiency. Rona says, that sounds right. Our friend Callie points out that Faye is a buffet girl. She can have both. Both
I
is
think
good.
I'm with that. I'm
Yeah.
a buffet girl too.
I th- there's a lot of kinds of girls that you are, not the least of which I think is a Barbie girl, if we're being real, right? But only for the song. Now,
Wrapped in plastic. That's fantastic.
it
Yes.
is. And
Yes.
Okay, Josh. You don't have to be the Barbie girl. Jeez.
I
Ricky
just want to be
D.
the buffet girl.
It's okay. You can be the buffet girl. Ricky D. What are you feeling at the start of this episode?
Before Mom shows up, I think, like you said, it's kind of a continuation of the last episode. We're starting out slow. We're getting a little bit of exposition. Spike's got his hangover or his brain scratch, migraine. It's starting out as a fairly innocuous episode.
Well, as innocuous as you can be with a giant close-up of a Playboy as your third shot of the episode, I think.
Now, but to that point, Cameron.
Well, I did not
I
cue
think-
you yet, Josh.
I
will get to
I
it.
feel like that was a cue.
I will cue you.
Wow. I'm sorry, Cameron. Do you have 2 mugs? Okay, so if you guys remember back to the original anime, do you remember the scene of Faye sunbathing on the deck of the Bebop? So this is a translation of that scene, but this is magnificent for so many reasons because the freedom, right? The sexual prowess, the empowerment, the fully clothed nature of the woman going on this journey by choice of her own agency, born from a scene that had 5 feet of legs on a 6-foot woman in less clothing than I wear. And she makes the word pontoon attractive. Like, to me, that's like the episode wins. Okay, it's a good episode. To me, that's enough. But we'll talk about the rest of the episode. We're not even to the theme song yet. The mom is hot too. We have to throw that out. Ricky D, MILF connection, John Cho, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Sorry.
That
What?
was I
He
think that was
coined the
you that
term
mentioned
MILF,
the MILF
or
connection, right?
popularized.
Yeah.
Actually, I believe that was our live chat attendee, John T. Bolds.
Oh, here I go, misaccrediting people like I do. Yep. John Cho made the word MILF popular, and now he's in this scene where he's telling Jet that mommies make the pain go away. So it's, I to that point. Okay, so we're on the
It is
Bebop
kind
now.
of a
No, we're
cougar
not.
hunter, I
We
feel
are
like,
we are
right?
recycling
Okay.
recycling this, rewinding this. I want to spend a hot minute on this Playboy.
Okay, let's
I
do
did
it.
my research, and we're going to talk about it. Not yet, Josh. I will tell you. First, we're going to talk about. So it's a September 1977 Playboy, which it looks in pristine condition for being about 100 years old and surviving the lunar gate crash. I mean, this thing has been around for a while. Except when you Google the September 1977 Playboy, it is not that cover. This cover was made for this show. And I should have known that because I did look it up because these articles sounded fascinating. And now we can throw it up there, Josh. Let's take a look at some of the articles.
You want it now?
Yes,
Look at
please.
him.
I know he's not ready. They read as if someone just put in a whole bunch of Playboy article headlines into a computer, and this is what it came up with. So we've got. Oh nope, go up. We want to see that top one. Firebum, a Playboy session turns into burning hind. We've got college shoot ball, and then this is my favorite, and it's going to get a little vulgar for a second. Fucker hunts great discovery, the complete story. I want this complete story, guys. My life is
yeah.
not complete until I read about Fucker Hunt's great discovery.
No, I think we need that as an audiobook. Let's be real.
What? What sort of strange English? I don't know. It's genius. And then there's a
Okay.
jazzy interview, which of course they had to pop on there.
They must have done the first step, right? They ran all of these Playboy like mini headlines through a machine learning algorithm.
An AI. Yep.
Then they put those most popular results into Google Translate, sent it to Japanese, and then sent that Japanese back through Google Translate to get to English. And that's why we have the phrasing that we have on the front of this magazine. That's what I think.
I buy that, but it's beautiful. And now every
Wow.
role play game I do from now on, my character's going to be named Fucker Hunt. You hear that, Intrepid DM? Get me a character sheet ready. Just put that on the top because it's default.
so vulgar that it almost comes all the way back around to not being vulgar.
right, right.
It's almost just a name now.
Also, I don't think Playboy was advertising Chinese cigarettes in 1977. Just a hunch. Should have been my
maybe-
first clue.
Maybe
this was
Chinese
fake.
Playboy was. You don't know.
Oh, true. I'm only looking at the U.S. covers on Google.
Amateur mistake, Cameron. Now, okay,
I'm sorry.
that
Okay,
was-
we may proceed now.
No, I think we should call that an evening, gentlemen. It has been an excellent show, and I mean, I don't think we can top that. So.
I'm Ricky D from Best List of Ricky D.
But wow, okay, we're on the Bebop.
We're on the Bebop.
Mommies make the pain go away. She's got this con going. This is the new, more likable version of Faye, where Faye is not only getting con, but she's also in on the con. It's like a multi-layer con. Oh, and that's important
God.
for a lot.
And of
reasons.
course, it all ends up being a bigger con. It's a con within a con within a con.
Right. And I gotta say, the way that they introduced her, what does she say? She got her recipe for dumplings from a rogue monk on the far side of Triton. Like, that is the most metal phrase I have ever heard in my life. Like, and somehow this episode continues to just be like character setups for role playing games. I don't know why that keeps happening, but yeah, I really liked the chemistry here on this in this first scene with all of them on the Bebop. I definitely got a little bit of the vibes, and I cannot remember the gal's name from the episode where she shows up and flirts with Jet just endlessly, and Spike is going, seriously, favorite
I think
person
it's 3.
ever.
I think it was episode 3 with the old lady.
Yes, but I don't remember her name.
yeah.
Oh, Josh, you're the
yeah,
producer. Go look up
great.
episode 3
Look it up
cast list
right
and
now.
tell me what
I
her
got
name
you.
is. So,
I got you.
but I got some of those vibes because I was like, okay, is the mom going to hit on Spike? Is she going to hit on Jet? What's going on? Because there's so many angles here. It's a multi-layer con, this, that, and the other thing. I hadn't ever seen this actress in anything. Did you guys recognize her from anything?
She looked familiar, but I IMDb'd her and nothing popped out.
Same. I was like, oh,
Woodcock.
Woodcock. Thank you. I don't know. how I
Woodcock
forgot
Hunt. That's right.
That name. Yeah. That I think. Yep. I think Woodcock may have been her last name, Cameron.
I think it's actually just, it's like Prince. It's one word. It's Woodcock.
Okay. Noted. So we do have this scene between really quick, sort of arguably extraneous scene between Gren and Anna, where she's getting really upset with him about a theremin.
I am getting very upset with Anna about getting upset about a theremin. That is the most beautiful instrument. If you can get that into your club, Anna, you book that act.
But I'm sorry, was that conversation improvised? Because it definitely felt like it. Like, it felt incredibly naturalistic to me. Like, it almost felt like they were talking about a theremin and a PA went, oh, that's the most boring conversation. Let's put that in, and have her be like, no. Like, yeah, the moment where Gren says, okay, I get it. Like, no, on the theremin, I know what a theremin is, which I thought was cool. I only recently know what that is. It's one of those instruments where you like don't touch it and it makes the spooky ghost sound, right?
It goes by like electricity, basically, or like stuff in the air. You like manipulate the
Magic.
the airwaves to create the noise that it's a really, really cool instrument, honestly.
Yeah. I love the theremin.
Super hard to play, like
Now-
and to make it sound good, like you can make sound come out of it, but
to Anna's point, like, have you ever been to a club and thought, you know what this club needs? Theremin.
now
Every
usually
time I've
I'm
been to a
walking
club.
down the 16th Street Mall in downtown Denver, and there's someone posted up on the corner with a bucket out in front, just making noise with his theremin.
Oh, I thought you just meant like a bucket, like yelling. at a
I've
bucket.
used
That
that
too.
to heckle people on stage. I just go, we should get a theremin act out here. This guy sucks.
Oh my god.
I'd rather watch somebody impersonate ghosts. Okay.
Note to
That's
self, don't go to comedy shows with Ricky.
also that's super easy to believe. Like, I think that was a bit, but I could picture that pretty easily.
Mhm.
I don't know about you guys, but I love Anna. I love this version of Anna. I think Tamara Tooney is a gift to wield against the enemies of Gondor. Speaking of, if you get a chance, make sure to listen to our good friend Sean at Cheap Seat Reviews. It's the podcast that reviews the Hollywood film industry for the greater good. They recently covered The Lord of the Rings, and I gotta say, masterful set of podcasts, gentlemen.
Is there
I
a
just-
bet going on with you assholes?
What are you
Except
talking
for that
about?
guy who showed up on the Fellowship of the Ring episode. I don't know about him.
That one was hard to listen to, but I pushed through it, and I think that if you're a completionist, you got to listen to all three of them.
Mhm.
So, But yes, Tamara Tooney is a gift. I love her. I feel like I've been talking for 20 minutes. Josh, is there anything from the beginning of this episode that you feel like you have to bring up?
I'm just trying to figure out what this bet is with cheap seat reviews.
Promise you, there is not a bet.
You know, not really. This is another one of those episodes where we don't actually see the title card till like 24 minutes in, I think.
Yes.
I have issues with that.
Why?
I do not. I love that.
Okay,
I think that's
why
great.
does it come in when it comes in?
Why does it need to come in at the beginning?
Okay. Before you two continue to ask each other antagonistic questions without answering each other, let's do it this way. Josh, why doesn't it bother you that the title card shows up at 24 and a half minutes through a 44-minute episode?
I think it's because I like the way the story goes. Like they put the title card up right when it needs to come up, instead of making you kind of like wonder about what's going on. Because it seemed they brought the title card up. Oh, I think it was right after the discussion at the table, right? Right after
Yes.
Vicious and all of them are talking at the table, they finally put up the Galileo Hustle.
Yeah.
And I feel like now we have an idea of what both hustles are in this episode.
Right.
And so they're telling us now that this is a hustle. Which, let me talk about that. I just have one little thing about that dinner scene that I wanted to bring up, because they did this on purpose, and it irritates me. When that dude eats whatever the F he's eating.
you know
What do
what
you
he's
think he
eating,
was
Josh.
eating?
You
I'm
know
pretty
what
sure
he's
I know
eating.
what he was eating.
I don't. Was it?
Testicles, right?
It had to have been. God damn it, that's so gross. I didn't want to think about it.
They were large, but
I was like, they look like
testicles.
Rocky Mountain oysters, but a little whatever. So the sound, they zoom in on the noise of him crunching on that and like the juices coming out of it. And it was such an anime thing to do that I was like, you would. You sons of bitches, you would
Some mouth
do
sounds
that.
for Josh.
I never wanted to eat a testicle before that scene, and then after watching it, I still don't want to eat any testicles.
Yeah.
No.
Really quickly, Cameron, before I
Oh.
give you an opportunity to present the opposite
Sorry.
argument
Sorry.
or to
Yeah,
explain
I-
why
Well,
you have issues with it, which I believe you probably can expound upon. I believe I may have misgendered Gren earlier, and our friend Phil corrected us as them. Apologies, and thank you, Phil. I appreciate that. Cameron, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it just felt like trying to be jazzy for the sake of being jazzy. I mean, every other title comes up pretty early. I think there's one at like 15 minutes, and then there's this one that's halfway through. And there's nothing in the story that I feel like indicates, well, now the episode's starting. We're in the middle of the Whitney plot. We're in the middle of the Vicious plot. I mean, the Vicious plot is just like three kind of separate scenes. Well, I'd say Julia's two scenes are connected, but otherwise they're just the pieces getting us from the last episode to the next episode. Like, I mean, what I just it
So-
needs a reason. It needs to be there needs to be a reason for it to show up. If they're going to do something so bold and so crazy, there has to be an underlying reason. I just don't feel it.
I think they should start doing it at the end of the episode just to say, F
Well, then
you.
they can do it at the end of the
That's
episode. Like I like it when it's being weird, and if the first 20 minutes of this episode were like a prequel or like all off on some other storyline, and then they just came back halfway through and popped up the title card, then that would be great.
No, they did this earlier. They did this in like episode 4, maybe 5. I don't remember, but it was full on like halfway through the episode, and it was specifically. I think it was episode 5 because that was the episode that our guests. Was it 2?
I'm pretty sure. I think you mentioned it when we did the preview.
I think it was
Okay.
only like 15 minutes in, though. I think there was one that was like 15, and then
So
one
with-
that was
yeah,
halfway.
I think it's when our friend Andrew from Bebop Tabletop was here because that was the episode where I realized every one of these episodes has an A and a B plot.
Mhm.
And to Cameron's point about, this is not necessarily the start of this episode or the start of the new stuff. This is, just the end of the connective tissue from the last episode. I felt that it was more of like, this is, again, it's almost impossible for me to talk about the series without talking about the episodes that are coming up after this. But I feel like retrospectively, and I didn't know the first time, and I was thrown off by it. The title card is happening here because it is a hustle. This is the Galileo Hustle, and it is reminding you, hey, you're maybe not necessarily as up to speed as you think you are. Because I was not, like, I remember specifically a couple of episodes after this going, wait, how are they going to get out of this? And then going, oh, I see how they're getting out of this. So it was one, I felt like the first time it happened, it felt a little more natural to me, and I feel like this time was more of like, oh, we've done this before, and it fits narratively because of the structure that you had mentioned earlier, where this is the end of the old stuff. But to your point, I kind of agree that it's not really the start of the new stuff. It's just the rest of this episode. It's not like a vastly different plot for the second half of this episode or anything like that. But Mao's hat, in the tradition of Guinan, is a thing of aesthetic wonder, right? I mean, like, just the brim on her hat is like 3 feet wide, and I love that hat. Jumping back just a tiny little bit, I actually really like that. Pardon me. I love that in this Bebop, Jet has learned a little bit from watching his own wife and daughter, and that seems to be helping him kind of pick up on some of the family or lack of family dynamics going on between Faye and her, air quotes, mother. I like that we have a reason for Jet to pick up on that instead of it just being that Jet doesn't trust women. Like,
oh yeah.
Well, my
which
impression,
is that's like his explicit thing in the anime. Sorry, Ricky, go ahead.
yeah, my impression of the whole Jet, Spike, and Mom thing was Spike was totally on top of it from the very beginning. Jet was going like, look at Faye, she's got closed up body
Posture, let's say.
posture. Sure, thank you.
Body
And
language.
Spike's like, yeah, no kidding. Jet just keeps on bringing up these little things like, I wonder if she's a con artist. I wonder if, and Spike's just like basically just almost ignoring him, like he's already 3 or 4 steps ahead of him. So that was my interpretation of their.
That's how I read it.
Yeah.
That's how I read it too, Ricky. Because like at first I was just at the point of being like, come on, these guys would pick up on this. They're being so obvious. That's a trope I hate in movies where like they have to like project the lie to the audience, and then it makes all the other characters in the room look like idiots for not picking up on it. So yeah, I think Jet picked up on it just in time. And then, yeah, at first you could read Spike's like, oh, whatever, I like dumplings, as kind of like sitcom-y humor. But it's Spike. He knows. And it's because, like, Spike is water. He knows right away, but he's not going to act on it. He's not going to act like it. He's going to play the dummy. And that's going to keep his opponents, like, off guard, thinking he's the dummy. It's also going to help him with his whole ruse with Jet to not seem quite so intelligent. Because of what he's keeping from Jet about his past. So yeah, I love that that whole thing, and it just reminded me, Spike's whole thing is he's like water, right? Like that's the episode from the anime I wish they had fit into this season that explains like how Spike, I think I said Jet, but Spike is so good at everything, and it's like, because you could look at him and be like, well, he's a badass and he's cool. But no, he's a badass because he's cool. It's that like water attitude that makes him able to be so on top of everything. And I think that's what we see here. And I wish they had brought that into the live action at some point. Like
I would have
more
liked
of an
that.
explanation. Yeah.
So if Josh and Ricky D, think back to the episode the camera's talking about of the anime, right? Where we've got like the bumbling, nice guy, but not super smooth. And he's like maybe in a criminal organization, but he's not very good. And he's asking Spike, like, hey, man, how do you be so cool? Can you teach me to fight? Who, in the live action, who should they cast for that guy in season 2? Since, of course, that here at Sudden But Inevitable, our goal is to hashtag save Cowboy Bebop and get hashtag more Bebop. Then we're going to need to help them plan ahead for things like that. The inevitable Spike training a guy episode. So, if you
Chris
could
Pratt.
go for, oh god,
1999
how do I
Giovanni
remove
Ribisi.
people from the stream and just, babes, how to mute? No,
That's who they will cast, and you know it.
no, they won't. They showed that they know how to cast correctly in the first season. They're not going to put Chris Pratt in this damn thing.
I think.
Jeremy Piven.
Oh my god.
Okay. What was your answer, Cameron? I'm sorry.
1999 era Giovanni Ribisi.
Okay, see, there you go. He's got greasy hair, some dirty stubble,
A little overeager.
Yeah,
lovable,
he hasn't really established himself as an acting powerhouse yet. We haven't had Gone in 60 Seconds.
Oh my god. Best movie ever.
at this point, he's just Phoebe's little brother on Friends, and that's all he'll be for a lot of people. So, our friend Phil says Tom Holland. What do we think about that? I think that would actually work.
I mean,
Teach me to fight, Mr. Iron, Mr. Spike. Ezra Miller can be overeager and a bit confused, says our friend Callie D. I don't know. Is that
Flash.
Is that the Flash? Yes.
Yeah.
Flash, yeah.
Don't say anything, Jesse.
Okay, I won't. And actually, those are both great picks. I think our chat did better than we did, you guys. But that's nothing new, of course. Here at Sudden But Inevitable, I did have a moment here in this episode that I really cherish, and you guys know me, like I watch things emotionally anyway, but I really loved that Gren and Julia get to have kind of a Marianne and Wanda moment in the alleyway in this case, right? Anyone? No?
No, sorry.
Okay.
I'm
Earl had to
nodding,
die?
but I don't know.
Oh. Earl had to die, but in this case, Earl is vicious. This might be the flattest a joke has ever landed for me.
I'm sorry, Jesse.
No, it's okay. It's specifically like ultra obscure, and I bet you there's two people out there going, yes, this is what I've been waiting for on Sudden But Inevitable. And
Earl had to die
those...
as in the Dixie Chicks song or the Chicks song?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You're quick with your Google foo.
No,
It's a good song.
I know the Chicks, yo.
It's a good. Okay.
I don't
okay.
remember Wanda or Marianne, but
They were the best of friends all through their high school days.
I know
the opening to the song.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Josh is having a moment, and I'm just gonna throw this
All
out
right.
there. I'm gonna throw this out there. I refuse to be judged by Josh for my music taste. So there, gauntlet thrown. Now,
Just trying to figure out if this is. Nope.
no.
Nope. Go forward.
Jesse, may I take a moment to talk about Found Family for a bit? I know
Please
you won't fault me for that. I do. There's a little detail very early on in this episode when they get back on the Bebop. Jet has just come back from shopping. He's been doing the shopping for the Bebop. And I like that detail because it really sets up this family dynamic we're going to get here pretty soon. There's Jet and Spike are the two dads. Jet is he's the disappointed dad we're going to get later. I trusted you. I brought you on my ship. I trusted you. All right, how long is it going to take to do your thing? Like, he's the pushover, disappointed dad. And then you got Spike, who's the cool dad, who's like, yeah, do whatever you want. Go make your mistakes. You'll figure it out. And, of course, you've got Faye as the wayward daughter. And I love that. I mean, even to the point, like, I was thinking that, and then there's the whole joke about them being gay on the bus. And
I love that moment.
And I just love that dynamic between all of them. And I guess that's all I have to say. I've got more to expand on that later, but we'll get to it.
Well, and I think that actually ties into what I was saying earlier about how this Jet feels more real, right? He feels
Yes.
more 3D, for lack of a better term. He's definitely got more of a relatable nature where he's not just, I don't trust people and I hate people that aren't on my ship. He's, I'm trying to keep some people happy and I'm trying to keep other people away from those people. And that's, life is difficult and it's all about balance, and you really see the struggle for balance in all of Jet's story, I think, throughout this series, right? And I mean, perhaps nowhere greater than in one of my favorite scenes of the entire series, where he is watching his daughter's recital.
Oh, yes.
With the hologram technology, and behind him Spike is having a full-on 1973 Saturday afternoon, like, low budget movie.
Bruce Lee, Kung Fu. Yeah.
And
It was like Neo fighting off all the Agent Smiths.
Just out of
you
focus.
guys, I was convinced that Jet, the first time I saw this, that Jet was going to miss the recital, or that he was going to somehow colossally screw up the recital or like hurt somebody there. Like, I was so nervous like the entire time that she was on stage. And at the end of it, he gets to live through the whole thing and experience it and pay off all these like tiny emotional beautiful moments with the family that he's still trying to hold desperately onto, and his ex-wife realizes he brought flowers. It's all these beautiful little things that actually make you feel stuff. And then immediately he gets thrown back into the world of Cowboys, but he actually gets to spend all of the full recital there, and I am still grateful for it. Like, I still feel palpable relief that he did not somehow ruin or miss the recital.
That had to have been super suspenseful as a parent, right?
Oh my God.
Because
don't-
for me, I was like, well, it'd be cool if he makes it all, but I would totally assume that he's gonna just go beat some ass and it's gonna be fine. Whereas you're over here like, if I ever missed my daughter's recital, I would kill myself. Like,
well, specifically, like, think about it this way: it's more of like everybody in that room, because you've seen the divorced parent. Okay, it's Mrs. Doubtfire, right? Except
Mhm.
Jet
Right.
has the good sense to not dress in drag and pretend to be a different person. So he's trying to stay attached to his family even though he's divorced, and even though his wife has moved on and stuff. He's like, okay, I'm still gonna be there for the kids. I don't really care about you, but whatever. And damn it, we do get a moment of Chalmers just being just so nice,
I love it. I love
and
it.
sweet,
Hey,
and
They
how
gave
nice you
a
are.
What a
character
human
arc between
guy.
Chalmers and Jet. They could have so
Yeah.
easily just played them as their foils off against
Yeah.
each other, and they didn't. They gave them an arc that was beautiful and sweet. And how dare anyone not watch the show or say that it sucks and get it canceled, because we never got to see the fulfillment of just that family unit and their very nuanced and realistic growth and development. I'm sorry, I'm pissed.
No,
that
it's
the show
100%.
got
Our friend,
hashtag save Cowboy Bebop.
our friend Phil says, I've been the stepdad at the music performance. It's worth all the effort. And dude, I gotta say, I mean, for real, like, all joking aside, I am the child of stepdad. I think stepdads are some of the most amazing people in the world. Step parents of any kind, of course, really. I think a lot of people can relate to that. And it doesn't take two parents to raise any child. It, of course, takes a village. So to see Chalmers accept the role of chieftain of that village, but to graciously allow, Jet the space that he is entitled to, was like, I'm getting a little bit emotional right now thinking about it, you guys. But
It's
to
so
Cameron's
good,
point,
and
yeah, it really is.
how dare people say this is a bad show? It's like, is it not like the anime? Maybe. Fine, you can have that conversation, but this is a good show. I mean, just that moment specifically, a lot of TV shows would be too lazy to have
I feel like
made.
this episode had the most emotion in it too. Like, it really, really brought out like
So far, yeah.
the amazing writing that these guys are capable of.
Mm-hmm.
And it is extremely sad that we don't get to see more of that development, because it could be a lot of fun. There could be like some sort of barbecue moment, where they're all hanging out making sausages together.
And Spike has Spike is, we get a tiny, huge moment from Spike here,
Mhm.
right? They, Jet's like, hey, I gotta go to this thing, and Spike's like, and I'm supposed to just hold off infinite assassins, and he's like, my daughter is
she's
the lead.
She is the sun, the center of the solar system, Spike.
And then Spike
right.
goes, oh, okay, cool. And then he like, no problem, right? But then we get this tiny little piece of dialogue from Spike where he goes, oh, everybody else's family problems are always my problems. I'm the orphan,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Huge backstory thing there, but he just throws it out as like this tiny little, also, whatever. So I feel like that adds just this tiny little layer of perfect believability, because it's like, dude, of course he's going to have a soft spot for kids of any kind and of any relation to him, right? Because he has been a vulnerable child before. So it's like, that is a huge thing in one, maybe two lines of dialogue. It's you're, to Cameron's point, like, if you want to have a conversation that this series is different than the anime, I think that's a conversation you can and should have. But I don't think you can have that without asking the question, is this better than the anime?
I would say yes. But that's my hot
I think in some aspects it is better than the anime, but then again, you can't. I mean, the anime is the original anime, like that's the original story that everybody fell in love with. So of course, there's going to be aspects of that is a little bit better as well. But as far as like writing and continuity and like an actual story that you care about, like the anime was built for a one season
depictions of female characters.
Yes, all the PC things that have come to light and all that stuff that they're now taking care of in this is wonderful. But I mean, the anime was really only built to be one season, whereas this, they're like laying the groundwork for it to be 3 to 4 seasons of a ton of story.
It's hard to compare. And I would say like the anime, for me, the anime is like a solid 7, maybe 8, like, but it stays in that level the whole way. It is consistent. The filmmakers knew what they wanted to make and they executed on that. I have my issues with some of the story stuff, but I think they saw their vision through to the end. And I would say that the live action has its ups and downs more, but I think the highs are very, very high, as you'll see when I rate this episode.
Well,
I do want to. I don't know if I'm going to say anything smarter or different than what Jesse just said, but 100% on feeling the stakes of Jet getting to his daughter's recital. Like, I think I was more on the edge of my chair for that than anything else in this season. And because I think it is just such a trope for these shows. I think we've seen it in Firefly. We see it in other aspects of the show where, like, our protagonists just never succeed. And that's kind of the joke and the point of the show, is that they try and then they fail. And, you know, we kind of had that set up with the teddy bear where he sort of got the daughter something, but then it didn't work out. And I was like, that's going to happen again. He's going to miss the recital. He's going to do it. I'm going to get so pissed off at the show, and they didn't. So just to echo Jesse and say, maybe it's a parent thing. My daughter's first recital is coming up here in a couple of weeks. I will fight the world to get to it. And also it's not a planet recital, but she right now is super into planets, and she would be excited. She wouldn't want to be the sun. She'd want to be Jupiter.
Well, it's kind of like the king of planets. I like it because it's the biggest of all the planets.
We do planet puzzles, and she just gets the Jupiter pieces and go, oh, Jupiter, I love it. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Very cool.
She's not into she's not into astronauts or the sun or spaceships, just the planets.
I promise that we will stop talking about our children after I say my daughter is currently learning a lot of Blackpink songs, and it's the cutest thing in the world. Ricky D, go ahead.
Well, if Cameron's going to echo what you're saying, I really feel like I'm more on Josh's side of the fence on this one. I really recognized the importance of Jet making it to his daughter's recital. Wow, I'm having trouble tonight. Having trouble getting to his daughter's recital. It was all important to me, but it really didn't yank on my heartstrings the way that you guys are mentioning. It was just like,
right.
I guess it's amusing that he can't help Spike, but I was more interested in the Spike storyline than in Jet seeing his daughter.
Well, honestly, for me, I think like in the performance, a big part of the heartstring pull comes from Mustafa Shakir's performance, because just the pure like look of elated
the dancing.
I'm here, I made it. Yeah, like it's like I have felt that way in ways that are not related to my child. Like I've felt that way just because I accomplished a thing before. So I feel like there is a layer of it that could be applied to that. But I mean, it's also I think it's almost like a Deadpool style moment, like going on behind him, right, with all this chaos and stuff. Sure. So it works on the comedy level for me too. Like I'm not here to say if you don't like the emotional part, then you didn't watch it right. It's just like I think that it combines all that stuff, and it puts it all on display. And it was so good. This episode.
The what?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it was so good that I didn't even care that the technology didn't really make any sense. How does the hologram work? How is he seeing the recital, but also the bartender?
I was going to say the coloring of this scene, like the very dusty Western like background, is I think what made me feel very 70s about it. But there was also like some real opaque blood stains on sand. Like I felt like I could feel the sand that was saturated, right? But Cameron, as the host of a Star Trek podcast, I'm sure you're okay with having a quick techno babble discussion.
Absolutely, let's do it.
We talked
Jordy.
about this before.
Jesse.
So what I think it is you'll notice in, I believe, episode 2, Spike, when he goes to speak on his radio, doesn't touch an earpiece or his ear. He just touches like part of his head. And it specifically shows his ear. There's no earpiece in there. So we have decided that everybody has some sort of either interocular / interaural transplant that they can use as a radio, but also doubles as the hologram technology projection device, because Jet was pretty clearly able to like see the space around him, right? Despite not actually being there. So there has to be a two-way video transfer going in both directions. So for example, the scene where, yes, the Futurama iPhones, thank you, Phil. The scene where Vicious and Julia are in the temple and the elders are trying to make him shoot her, right? To get a gun into his hand, they have to have the guy that's in Vicious's apartment put the gun in his hand in real life, and then that gun scans in to the hologram. So I think the answer is...
But is it like projecting straight into his eyeball or into his brain? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
What he's seeing?
Yes.
Okay. Because we don't see it projected into the bar.
Right.
It
And
seems
it's
to imply
not-
that it's not like a projection in the bar that the bartender can see.
Right. It's it there. So that's what I'm thinking. It has to be some kind of like. It has to be a two-way video feed, right?
Straight to his eyeball
Right.
or
Like
brain.
brain style. Yeah.
Okay. That's, I mean, like I said, I don't care.
But then how is his ex-wife and Chalmers seeing him?
Because they have the same implant. Everybody has the hologram implants for ease of access.
It's like a Zoom meeting. You have to have a certain Zoom code for each
no,
hologram you
It's
do.
like Phil said, the Futurama iPhones. That's like exactly the thing. That's
But
You
I've
wanna hear
never
a hot
seen
take?
Futurama. I don't care about
Thank
Futurama.
you. See, me either. I've seen maybe 2 episodes of Futurama.
I guess I can
you
go.
guys, Ricky's gonna leave. Come
Later,
on, I don't want
skaters.
Ricky to leave. I want him to stay here.
I'm
and I
sorry.
want him
That
to
whole-
come back.
I'm sure it's fine. I've just
That
never
whole
watched
Bender
it.
controversy does not affect me at
My
all. I
friends-
can
my
care less if
friends-
they recast Bender.
They keep
Fuck
telling
it.
me it's so good. I'm like, yeah, it's slightly smarter Simpsons.
What I'm hearing is that
Thank
there's
you,
a
Cameron.
potential
Only
podcast somewhere where people make camera. that was like the best video editing we've ever had, and we have a full-time video editor. What I'm hearing is there's a podcast where Ricky D forces Cameron through Futurama one episode
I'll
at a
take it.
time.
I'll do it.
I just really quickly, Cameron, because I respect you, I will say it is not slightly smarter Simpsons. It's like it is galaxy brain beyond. And I only say that because there are a ton of jokes in it that I still don't get. And I'm not saying that means it's smart. I'm just saying like I consider myself smarter than the average idiot, and I don't get a lot of jokes in that show. So, however that comes across, it's honest. Our friend Callie says, "Thank God, I can't imagine not having the 2021 stuff in my life." Okay, imagine it's a Zoom call via holodeck. No, Phil, it's a Futurama iPhone, or it's a Zoom call via holodeck. But yes, I okay. Does that succinctly answer your question, Cameron?
I said I didn't care about it.
Oh, I don't either. I'm glad we went on that digression though, because it feels right.
It felt right. I want to go back a bit to just a quick line Whitney had to Faye. They were having a little kind of a sidebar by the fridge where the
I'm pretty sure I know what this is.
gentleman can't hear her. She says, "Try these panties on. If I go to jail, you can French kiss all hopes of knowing your past goodbye." And I immediately went, "Oh, that's where Faye gets her mouth." And I loved it.
Right.
I thought it was a very good bit of writing of like, oh, this is absolutely, we are now learning where Faye comes from.
She's got some wonderful one-liners too.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't I tell you to fuck off?
Okay, you guys,
Mhm.
the mink, right?
The mink, the iron
Okay,
mink. Oh, you
The
wait.
Iron
favorite.
Mink. Now,
He's
really
my
quickly,
Do you mean the poor man's
Yeah, no,
Jared
no,
Leto?
no.
The poor man's Jared Leto?
before we say that, I have to ask.
Okay, sorry.
He's not
okay.
even the poor man's Jared Leto. You get out of here with that.
Okay, I was gonna say, Josh, will you tell us who he is? And then,
Oh yes, I'm sorry.
if you don't know who he
Cameron got me all
is,
flustered talking about Jared Leto over there.
do you not know who he is off the top of your head, Josh? And I'm only saying that because I
don't.
don't
I
know
have
if this
to-
is a band that you would like.
Oh,
I have to look it up.
a
Do you know who
band.
Tyson Ritter is?
He's not
Fleetwood
in
Mac.
All-American Rejects, is he?
Tyson Ritter is of the All American Rejects, plays the Iron Mink, and
Whoa.
No
is
way.
married to Elena Setine, who plays Julia in real life.
Oh.
How freaking
Oh.
mind-blowing is that?
Interesting.
Mind blown.
I just found out that James Gunn is married to Harcourt from Peacemaker.
Oh, yeah.
You guys, on our show, Sudden But Inevitable, we should look into who people are more. There's like interesting stuff.
We should read Us Weekly more, apparently.
Maybe not that, but like
No?
we could
Okay.
IMDb people. Like that's a verb.
Huh.
Josh, like, are you an All American Rejects fan? I'm only asking because I don't know. I don't mean to be like.
I mean, I was back when I was in high school and stuff. They were part of like that kind of genre of crap that I listened to. But
we describe
He
your
said it.
music the same way. Yeah.
dude, it's fine. I fully admit that the music that I listened to back then and still currently sometimes listen to is complete and utter garbage. It's fine. It's fine.
It's
Um,
your kind of garbage. That's
They're
what
better
matters.
musicians.
Absolutely. I will
Yes.
swim in that garbage
I
all day long.
Just
and
like
all
a
night,
Star Wars
okay?
fan does.
Exactly.
Because
Don't
that's
pull
what
me
Luke
out of
did.
this.
Because that's what Luke did. Not
Don't,
because.
don't pull me out of this compactor. I'm good
Yeah,
in here.
okay,
Just
cool.
let me swim in this for a little bit.
Just wanted to make sure you got the metaphor. I wasn't trying to be a jerk.
Oh,
Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm looking up this guy's. See, I I'm kind of disappointed in myself that I didn't notice
No,
that, because I'm
it's cool.
huge in like connections when it comes to that sort of
Yeah.
ridiculousness. I had no idea that Tyson Ritter was even doing acting or anything like that. I just figured All American Rejects went away in 2010 and that's about it.
I didn't even know that he was a guy. Like I didn't know that band was former or current. Like, you know what I mean? I've heard the name, but it's like,
I like their song titles
yeah.
more than I like their music.
I mean, and he does a wonderful accent. He's from Oklahoma,
Oh.
and this dude is doing an amazing, what is that, Russian accent?
He's throwing it all in. That's why I'm saying he's like Jared Leto. He's totally like embodying a whole nother character here. He's trying to, he's working
And you're
it.
absolutely right.
I'm not
Tyson
saying he's
Ritter
better.
is the
I'm not
poor
saying
man's Jared
he's better
Leto.
than Jared Leto. He's just probably cheaper than Jared Leto.
Absolutely.
to hire. You mean?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
not
And you know,
not in the soul.
oh, well.
You just blew my mind with that. I'm gonna start looking into characters more. I'm sorry, Jesse. I feel like I have failed the Sudden But Inevitable podcast in that aspect.
No,
I will
It's,
vow to do better.
it's all good. Every time you open your beautiful lying mouth, I want to kiss
I
it.
know.
Like that character is. What's the word? Is it camp or is
Fun?
it cheese? I can't.
Camp. Oh, it's camp.
Okay.
Yeah.
That character is 100% camp, and I don't know. Apparently, I'm a camp fan because, like, I love the Iron Mink. I was convinced we were gonna lose a character. The first time I saw this, I was convinced we were gonna lose a character temporarily. Like, oh, somebody's gonna get killed and then resuscitated or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like to make him think, okay, score is settled. And
Did
I
the
was
mink? Sorry. Did
No,
the
go
mink
ahead.
remind you guys of any other movie characters, TV show characters, anything like that?
he was a little Niska for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say he
Niska,
felt
okay.
very Firefly to me. Yeah.
Yeah. I was getting Merovingian vibes from him, from
Oh,
the
a little
Matrix
bit, little
Reloaded.
bit.
That weird French guy.
Mhm.
I have sampled all the languages. French is my favorite, especially to curse with. It is like wiping your ass with silk.
Exactly.
Check out this guy. Jeez.
It was a.
All right, dang. It's like you guys planned that out or something.
I just have that kind of memory, and it's a gift and a curse.
That's what makes this show so good, because all of us have different kind of memories and stupid references like that, but they're all from different angles.
100%. I'm gonna have to agree with you on that. But I mean, I was all in on this character. I was like, this, and if he's space western. To Ricky's point, he feels like he could be from any space western because he has the tropiness, but he has the execution down. And like, this is not the first time that we have seen, especially in the live action Bebop, that a character's reputation is actually almost more important than their physical presence, right? Because in, I think it was maybe the last episode or the episode prior, Spike is going, I'm not taking Faye out with me to just hunt bounties. I don't know what she's capable of. And she goes, I bagged Roland Dupree. And he's like, oh, okay, then let's go hunt bounties. So reputation is huge in this world. I mean, we have the reputation of the eunuch, right? Like, yeah, I mean, his reputation is pretty preceding. No, what's the word?
Unique?
Unique and widespread. So yeah, I don't know that there's anything in this episode that bumped me as I wouldn't have done that. Do you guys specifically have anything? I'll start with you, Cameron. Was there anything in this episode where you're like, that's not my favorite thing? But other than the title card, yes, from the critical lens.
Actually, it's only the title card, really. That, and I think we get 0 Ein this episode.
Yeah,
I mean that's just what's missing. I think rewatching this, because I was thinking, I watched this all when it first aired. I didn't finish it before it was canceled because apparently Netflix doesn't think about working fathers who can only fit in an episode every few days. But I was thinking, I think maybe 6 is my favorite episode, and then I rewatched this one last night and was like, God damn, this is a good episode. It is so well written. There are so many good callbacks. I just love, there's like early on, somewhere in the middle, Whitney, the mom character, says something about, she makes a joke about a safe word. I'm like, I'm doing like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme right there. Like, I know what that means now. It's foreshadowing. And just like all the stuff again with the family unit, like it feels like at first blush it's a Faye episode, but no, there's so much about Jet and Spike in this episode when you really look at it. So I'm sorry, long-winded answer to say no. I think that title card is the only thing I bumped on in this episode.
No, that's excellent, and that's impressive. And I do have to bring up, our live chat pointed out that there is, in fact, 0 Ein in this episode.
That is
and
a
of
shame,
course,
though.
you know what that means, my friends. That means that it does not pass the Barkdale test. So that will be something that they can address in season 2 once we have hashtag saved Cowboy Bebop. Ricky D, what do you got, my friend?
Yeah, you were asking Cameron if he had any like complaints about this
What
episode.
bumped you, man? What bumped you?
Yeah, there was the syndicate scenes with Julia. The first one where she went in with Anna and she's like, "You never told me he was still alive. When have you ever had nostalgia?" And it was just like really over the top, and I was not buying it at all. It was like she was just this weird, desperate woman coming in there trying to figure out where Spike or Fearless is. And then also when she went into that forge area with Mao, that was some really bad green screen work. Like there were some shots that looked like those old Attack of the Clones shots where there's just like one person and there's just like really bad digital green screen behind them.
Mm-hmm.
I will have to rewatch it because honestly, I didn't see it. And I'm not saying it wasn't there. I'm saying I didn't see it. Josh, if you're able to pull a screen of that where you can find a spot where you think
I mean,
it
I've
might
kind
be
of just
apparent.
gotten used to it over the course of the series because this show, it certainly
I
like
see what you mean.
strains against the boundaries of its budget.
Yeah. Well, and I think
kind of maybe.
I think a big part of that for me, and I'm not discounting that at all, Ricky D. I think for me, that in my head just translates as this is the visual aesthetic, right? Like this is part of the translation that we get. So you get Dutch angles, you get cars that are very clearly not on an actual road, you get funky lighting, that kind of a thing.
You get the
But-
red hue to symbolize the like plot of death and stuff like that.
But
That's
it's totally it's totally a fair point to say like they could have, worked harder on that sort of a thing. But
Yeah, I agree. That's one of the things where, like, again, like you can kind of see the budget, but as you were saying, Jesse, the show is so stylized, it kind of gets away with some of those shots.
I guess that would be the most that I could see out of this whole scene, where it's kind of a bad green screen.
kind of a hard line there on the edges.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to that point, I mean, you could chalk everything up to the pastiche, but I don't want to do that for fear of seeming like some sort of crazy apologist. Did you have any other bumpy moments in this episode, Ricky D?
No, it was just the Julia basically in the cartel scene or syndicate scenes.
Yep. I can appreciate that. Josh, did you have any complaints about this episode, my friend, before we go further?
I didn't actually. This is
You didn't?
it's one of my favorite episodes of this whole
What?
season.
I figured you'd be upset we didn't take a whole episode to go find a tape player when Faye found her tape in her identikit.
No, I'm good. I'm good on just that not being a thing because it would have had to been a beta VHS player, beta player,
Right.
Betamax. Anyway,
It did make me excited because I was like, oh yeah, they didn't do that. But you like the way they've been recycling plots in other ways throughout this season. I was like, they'd have to go to Earth in search of some old tech in season 2, and I wonder what it would be.
Well, and
Hashtag season 2, mother effers.
I think that's a difficult hashtag to get going, but we'll work on it. I think that it actually fits here too because the first thing I thought was, so Jet just has a VHS player from '98.
Sure.
Like, come on, dude. And then I thought, wait a minute. Jet is a clear proponent of physical media. He's been talking about like records and bebop and jazz and all this stuff, and he's got all this. Of course, he would have a video player lying around. That
And
fits.
Jesse, they probably just picked it up wherever they got that 1977 issue of Playboy from. They've got connections with some sort of antique dealer.
They went to there's a flea market that's just full of like mid to late 1900s stuff. That's pretty cool.
Just
wow.
pointing out.
Thank you, Allie.
I don't have like this episode is hilarious. It has a ton of awesome one-liners. It's got good story moments. It's got good plot points. It's like I didn't have the actors are all great. I didn't have much of any complaints. So and I watched this episode 4 times today because I don't have much else to do. So I put it on loop and just kept watching it.
That's the way to do it. You know what else it has? Okay, every episode has this, but Faye's amazing outfit. I was admiring those tights. They are so awesome.
Yeah.
Her leather jacket also has like a lot of very intricate like leather work on the back. The of course the yellow kind of vest is so cool. Like I wish I was a woman so I could just cosplay as Faye sometime and then
You still could.
bump
Yeah,
into
just do
like
it.
someone cosplaying as Mel, and then one thing leads to
Her
another.
sunglasses were also really awesome and fairly
Oh,
impractical.
They were.
Dude, her sunglasses were the meme sunglasses from the GIF where they come in from out of frame and land on your nose. Look at those. Those are the meme
That is-
sunglasses.
I mean, that is a vibe right there, Daniela Pineda.
Okay,
So-
Josh, give me that scene again. That's almost a shot for shot of the scene of her on the deck of the Bebop from the anime where
Yep.
she's wearing basically nothing, right?
Yep.
This is that scene I was talking about earlier. This is the perfect forward progressive thinking translation of what we had into what we needed. And
with
and
Leatherman, the Leatherman
it's-
magazine.
it's good in a lot of ways. Now, before I get to my last couple of questions that I have for you wonderful gentlemen,
Mhm.
I would like to go around and say, is there anything from this episode you feel like we have to talk about before I ask you my last couple questions and we move into our segments? Let's start with our guest, Cameron.
Oh, I did want to just ask everyone. I brought up safe word, and that comes up again near the end of the episode. What's your guys' safe word?
Josh? That's not my safe word. I mean, Josh should go first.
Nope, you said it. It's like chess. Your hands off the piece.
I don't think chess and
Nope,
safe
chess
words...
rules apply here.
Okay.
Chess
So I'm gonna
and
be-
sex always go together, Jesse.
I'm gonna be really honest with you. I'm a pretty vanilla dude. I don't have a safe word.
I don't actually have a safe word, but I'm going to make one up that's funny, Josh.
I don't believe you at this point.
Nor
Okay.
should you. Nor should you.
I have to tell you, Cameron. So, on Josh's previous podcast, Twist My Arm, we had an episode where we interviewed our friend Pixie from the podcast Next on Stage One. Our friend Pixie is a former stripper, and I asked her to please give us stripper names. And Josh turned the reddest shade of red I have ever seen him in my life, like the entire time. And she was like, "Well, what's a song you'd be comfortable dancing naked to?" And Josh was like, almost died. And so that's actually where I got the name Captain Boot
Yes.
Scoot, in case you're wondering. So I believe Josh, and I believe that when you ask that question to Josh, it actually fries some of his synapses. I know Ricky D from Best Flicks with Ricky D has a Rolodex of safe words. Ricky, what do you got?
Wait, so just real quick, Josh is your podcast, Rob. Is that right?
Oh, I don't think so. Oh,
No.
yes. I thought you meant is he the alpha, but then I remembered John T. Bolds is the alpha of your podcast. Yes, Josh is the Rob of my podcast. Thank
Okay.
you. Yes.
Just we got that
Ricky
straightened
D,
out.
go ahead. What's your
Yeah,
favorite safe word?
Usually, my go-to safe word is "I'm serious."
I don't think you understand the spirit of the safe word. But I like it. I like the performance, really. Does it have to be that exact vocal intonation?
Well, otherwise it's not safe. Live chat, sound off. What is your safe word? You know me. I'm thematic. I'm dramatic. I think it would have to be something. I can't go with Fidelio because there's too many connotations there. It sounds hilarious to me, and I think that's part of the point of a safe word, right? Is it kills the mood and it breaks you back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. Oh, there goes rabbit. So I think my safe word would probably be spaghetti, as in moms. Because
Wow, that
just
was a train of thought. That was
shuts
just
everything down. Yeah, that's
Okay.
a peanut.
That's that whole phrase. It's not the safe word is not just spaghetti.
Yeah, it's got to be the
spaghetti,
entire
as
song.
in moms.
We. That's a peek into the terrifying hellscape that is my mind. Our friend Phil in the chat says, "I shared an apartment with Ricky in college. Can confirm." Our friend Callie says, "I mean, a safe word is something you would never willingly say. So pizza."
I feel like
this is
I
a
feel
hot
like
take.
Ricky's safe word would be more like crisis alert. I just would see that a little more.
There's a hot take in the chat that we have to address quickly, and then we'll move on. Our friend Callie is not a fan of pizza. This came up on Twitter earlier in the week, and we have explained to her that even though it's the exact same argument as when you say you don't like beer, and somebody goes, "Oh, you just haven't found the right beer," and it's like, yeah, you know why I haven't found the right beer? Because I don't like beer. However, Callie is much more open to trying new and different pizzas, and is willing to be proven wrong. She has admitted, but I mean, safe word's gotta kill the mood, and it's gotta break you out of your trance. So that's why she picked pizza.
That's why my safe word is Joe Piscopo. Got to go with the classic.
Joe Piscopo.
Joey Piss.
Now, is it just Joe Piscopo, or is it the key to your safe word being Joe Piscopo that when you say that, you picture Data the android?
Either or, I mean, for each their own.
Well,
But
it
yes.
depends. But yeah, okay. To each their own, yes.
But thank you for picking up on the Star Trek connection with Joey P.
It's the only thing that I do. In all seriousness, our friend Killip Frogmeyer says, in all seriousness, though, a spotlight system works well. Green is go, yellow is slow down, red is stop. That's actually a good point.
Man, not only is Phil well versed in the pop culture side of things, but dang,
Phil's kind of
Right,
freaky.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to out him
Phillips-
too much, but Phil's a little freaky.
He's read some
hit me up,
fine
Phil.
literature.
I could use some answers on some things.
He is the most interesting man in the world. Our friend Rona says, in 1978, interestingly enough, Radio 4 became 1,500 to 200 kilohertz. That's the only one I needed to know. I'm very lost, Rona. What is this? What are you
I
talking
think
about?
Callie was asking her about a radio earlier. And that seems to line up with some radio talk.
Thank you, Ricky. Thank you for catching
Is
me
that
up.
Rona's safe word? Radio 4?
I think that's a safe word.
Radio 4, audio dramas, Radio 4, Doctor Who. That's a game called Word Association. I think I played it correctly.
Wow.
Our friend Callie says, did you see the judgy look that Josh has? This is how I suffer. Okay, you guys, let's reel this in just a tiny little bit. I have a couple of questions to ask. Cameron, I know that you noticed this, but did you notice the second appearance this season of Faye's identikit registration number?
I was looking for it. It's X1234, right?
It's X12345SS, but beneath that immediately
Oh shoot!
is directly translated
Is
from
it
the anime
1701?
as NCC 1701-B, which our friend John T. Bolds pointed out is the Excelsior, which was eventually captained by Sulu, who was eventually played by John Cho.
Wow.
I gotta say,
A
it's crazy
ridiculous
cool.
roundabout connection.
And it's crazy cool that we got both green shirt guys on both episodes of Cowboy Bebop that reference actual Star Trek. Like, what are
Can
the
we
odds
say?
of that we would have Federation guests in both instances? I love that. Now, last thing. Okay. Do we think that? Let's say we're getting season 2. We know that we're getting season 2
Absolutely.
because we have hashtag saved Cowboy Bebop and we're getting hashtag more Bebop. Is Whitney? Couple questions here. Is Whitney really Faye's mother? And if not, do we ever really meet Faye's mother, or is it a long gone mom-con? Easy mom, easy go. An eternal maternal lack of returnal, so to speak.
I definitely don't think that she was actually Faye's mother. I think Faye even mentioned that she ran a con where she woke multiple people out of cryo sleep.
You see
So
a lot
that
of
would-
open identikits there in that warehouse.
Well, and you hear Faye's actual mom talking to her on the VHS later, and it's definitely not
I mean,
her. It's not Whitney's voice.
and especially with the VHS tape, it implies they're going the route of the anime that she cryo
And
slept a
Whitney
long,
even
long time.
admits at some point in the episode, like, your parents, no one came for you, so you gotta.
postulates. She does say nobody came for you, but then she postulates as to why. She doesn't know why explicitly.
Whitney
and
says
that's
a lot of stuff this episode.
Right. And so that's the reason that I ask. Do you guys think that this would be a story thread we come back to, or would it just be, no, her parents are definitely gone and that's
I think
it?
you'd come back to this story thread because of the couple aspect, because of the All American Reject and Whitney. Like,
Yeah,
I
I think
think
Whitney would come back.
I think them as a couple would be a fun, like, them hunting them down or something.
And
Well,
the
I think-
bounty on them combined has got to be
Ooh.
huge.
And I think Faye going and looking for her childhood home. I mean, that is just such an iconic scene of the anime, which is why I chose that episode. Come on, don't go hunting Meteor Falls. Check that out, season 2. Yeah, I think she eventually would have tried to track down her past. I think it's the best subplot of the anime.
yeah. Ricky, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, did Faye age in cryo sleep? Because she
So-
must have gone into cryo sleep at like 10, 11 years old, and then she came out around a 19, 20-ish year old, but it was more than a 10-year span in cryo sleep.
So not necessarily, because it's possible that the tape could have been made 10 years before she went into cryosleep, right? And that's just the last thing that she has available as of those
Okay.
possessions.
I think that's the right
yeah, I
answer
think
on
that's the key, because she was clearly old enough to, like, okay, know what sex was, but not have had an orgasm, right? So she was like, I think that she probably was about her current age when she was frozen, if maybe a little bit younger. But yeah, I think that actually that's a good question, and I think that answers it.
Yeah, I think the identikits are kind of like, the scene in the movies when the guy gets out of jail and they hand him all their, possessions that they had when they went into jail. When you saw those other identikits, it was like clothes and everything, and then Faye opens her up and it's the whole Fifth Element scene where they open the box and it's not what they were expecting, and it's just a tape, whereas everything else, for whatever reason, when she went in, that's all she had with her.
Yeah. Rona does confirm it was a thread about a Sanyo radio that they were talking about. That's why she was mentioning Radio 4 and kilohertz, etc. Thank you for clearing that up. I was very confused, and I appreciate the additional understanding. So I believe those are all of my questions. Cameron, is there anything else you feel like we have to talk to before we get to our segments for the week?
I mean, nothing super specific. I want to lay some more praise on this. Like I do, we talked about the Julia Mousy maybe doesn't look super great, and that these scenes are just kind of threading us together along the vicious plot line. But it is some really great plotting going on here, both from like a storytelling perspective and from like a mafia crime syndicate, like the moving the chess pieces, who's playing who, like it's all really good. And I mean, it's not the focus of, it's kind of the focus of the season because it is the one storyline that goes through the whole season, but in each episode you only get little bits, and it's done so well. Like, just to throw some shade, maybe Book of Boba Fett could have taken a lesson from here, taken a page to put in their book on like how crime syndicates should actually kind of plot and play against each other. I think it's all written very well. Yeah.
You're
Josh,
not going to get me, Cameron.
I was on Josh. I was seeing if I could rile him up.
That's
I don't know where Josh falls on be a BB.
If you want to find out where
We could
Josh
just
falls,
run a whole
How could I find
season
out?
called Quest Me about Book of Boba Fett.
Where would I watch that, Josh?
Same
Here.
place you're watching this.
Well,
you can
if
actually
you're-
go to twistmyarm.net
Mhm.
and see all of our live streams on the live stream tab anytime we're live.
I was on that
And-
show.
you can rewatch
We were
all
yesterday.
of the episodes of Quest Me and Sudden But Inevitable and Marvel Canon Madness here at youtube.com/twistmyarmpodcast.
Yeah. I would
Now-
agree though that the syndicate in Book of Boba Fett was a little
Yeah.
but I also think there's more to that, so get at me later.
All right, you and me are going to talk. We're going to have some words.
Josh, speaking of talking words, do you have anything else you'd like to cover from this episode before we get to our segments?
Just the ending. How have we not talked about the ending when she watches the video?
Waterworks
that-
every time.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, every time it gave me
It's
the
so good.
waterworks, and it's like, how many times when you were a kid did you talk to your older self, going, "Man, I really hope you're not a freaking loser 15 years from now." And I like that because it's like a time capsule. Did you guys ever bury a time capsule?
Mhm,
And my family did that, and it was really cool to like dig up this capsule 10 years later in our backyard and see what we all buried and stuff, and it's kind of like that, and it's especially more poignant for Faye because she has no idea who she is.
Right. This
And
is
for
a
her to
stranger talking
see-
to her.
For her to see herself talking to her like that, like, oh my God, you actually did have a life, you did have parents, you did have something, you just had to suffer some sort of tragedy, you had to suffer a tragedy to be where you are now.
You were happy once you were without trauma.
Right. And it was really the best scene probably, and for me, one of the best scenes in the entire season, the entire
agree.
series, because it's just so raw, and you can just see it in Faye, and the acting in this scene is incredible because Jet at first he's like, oh, this is really cute, and then realizes, oh shit, this is kind of a big deal.
Mhm.
Well,
And Spike
actually-
just kind of enjoys it because he's like, oh, kids.
Yeah.
And that actually goes back to earlier. I think that's my favorite part of this moment, is that it is almost shot for shot from the anime. The only difference is that instead of Faye being alone for the scene, Spike and Jet are
It's
in
got-
the room.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And Jet reacts how a dad would react. He's
Well,
like,
I'm
"Oh,
sorry.
she's so cute,"
In the anime, Spike and Jet are watching it, then she's watching. They don't realize she's watching it, right? Like she walked out of the room and they got it working,
Right.
and she's watching from the doorway, I think.
And
And
didn't
then
she
there's
watch it
another
multiple times.
Yeah, there's in another episode she's like watching on a repeat.
So, but to have, Jet sitting there going, oh, what a cute little girl, like he was doing earlier. She's clearly doing something similar to a recital with the pom-poms, right?
Mhm.
And then you have Spike there going, oh, I now actually identify with Faye. I'm an
Mhm.
orphan. She's
Mhm.
effectively an orphan, right?
Mhm.
So he's having this moment of quiet consideration, which is just John Cho portrays those masterfully, and we can't talk about it enough.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, just to that point, I mean, basically, again, kind of repeating what Jesse said, damn you. I think it was such a smart move to put this scene in an episode that featured Kimmy, that featured Jet's daughter, because, again, like, his expression is almost as emotional to me as Faye's. Because, yeah, he's and it reinforces that found family dynamic. Like, he sees her as a daughter. He sees, like, it reinforces the surrogate father that he is to her.
yeah.
And I really love that connection. I guess just going back to Bump's tiniest bump in this episode is there's the moment where, like, then the mom says, okay, did you say everything? And the look on Daniela Pineda's face sells that moment so good. They did not need the next two lines. They did
Right.
not need the, okay, mom, and then her saying, mom, it's fine. It's not terrible. But, like, I thought they had nailed it with just the mom's voice and the look on her face.
See, and that's the kind of addition or subtraction that I really like to hear. Like, what I would have done is cut these 4 seconds.
Yeah.
Because that's like, that's how close to nearly perfect I would say this thing is. And I really, really like that. Ricky D, have you got anything else we got to talk about before we get to our segments, my friend?
Nope. I just wanted to make sure we hit on that video and how everybody interpreted it. So
Thank you so
I
much
am
for bringing
good.
that up. Dude, I would have blown right past it because you know how I am. Speaking of blowing right past things, let's get to the first weekly segment, which I cannot wait for. We like to call this segment Shot of the Show. Shot of the Show, as you know, is where we share our favorite visual moments from this week's episode. Those moments that now live rent-free in our heads. Cameron, as our guest this week, please go ahead and go first. Josh, bring up Cameron's shot. Give us the time code. And Cameron, walk us through it, my friend.
Cameron's at 34 minutes and 20 seconds.
Yes, it is. We've talked a lot about this. It's a shot of Jet sitting with, watching his daughter's recital, but we see him in the bar and Spike fighting in the background. Again, I love it because it's a lot. We covered a lot of this already, but as you said, Jesse, like, it could just be funny. It's ha ha ha. He's watching the recital and not realizing Spike's fighting in the background. But like we talked about, and I use the captions here where he's saying, I'd fight the world to make sure I showed up. He's telling his ex-wife. And so I'm kind of cheating by getting 2 lines here. But let me gather myself because it's a really good moment. We know that Jet would fight the world to get to his daughter's recital, but he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to because he has a partner that he trusts to fight the world for him. And his partner would fight that world for him. And it's so good and it's so meaningful. But then also there's the part of it that his partner will fight. He will fight the most notorious arms dealer in the system for his friend Jet, but he won't tell him the truth. He won't tell him about his history. And that's the drama that I love that they added to the live action that's not in the anime. This friction, this kind of fatal flaw in their otherwise such glorious relationship. I love it. I could have used the scene with him kind of doing the dance because that is kind of my favorite moment. But here with that line, I think it's just so deep.
Well, and none of us are space cowboys. I mean,
No,
in our
Speak for
day
yourself.
jobs.
Oh,
In our day jobs. But we've all had relationships like that where it's like, I don't like this person or really like know much about them,
mhm.
but I actually trust that they will do the thing that I need them to do because like we're at work or, for example, we have a common goal sort of a thing. So, having been part of, say, I don't know, like a group of dudes that makes a podcast happen, like we have to all contribute pieces to that. It doesn't just happen. So there's always those dynamics of like, I know that Ricky D doesn't love spending all of his time with me on a Friday. but I know he loves talking about Cowboy Bebop, and I trust that he's going to put in the effort to pick his things, and he's going to watch the episode, and he's going to think about it, and he's going to talk about it like an intelligent person, right? That's that kind of like weird, unspoken, like manly. I don't need you, but I totally am glad that you're here, and couldn't do this without you guys. And I feel like that's a great flavor to point out on that.
And it's not like I have anything better to do on a Friday night.
I love you too, man. Thank you for being here with us. In fact, let's go ahead and put Ricky's shot up next. Josh, go ahead.
That's going to be at the 32-minute and 29-second mark. Bam.
Yeah, this was that weird storage complex that they went to. Obviously, just run down, sketchy. I'm pretty sure they're manufacturing red eye in one of these units. But it really spoke to the whole aesthetic of everything. I love the name Stash and Go. Like, it implies that there's people hiding
Something shady going on.
evidence and, all kinds of stupid stuff in there. So I just really liked the shot.
I like how the roof opens up later on, too. That was cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, they would need to if you're going to be able to store a jump craft or a zip craft, right? I really I put this in my notes as the video game storage location.
Yeah.
from every
Oh
Need
my
for
God.
Speed game, right? Like you go to a garage with a big funny name on the front of it, and you get a new car.
Guys, can we get a Grand Theft Auto Cowboy Bebop edition?
I mean, if that's not a mod, it should be.
Oh, man.
Get on that, you lazy modders. I do really like that pick, and it's very. I love to that scene. I love that we finally get Faye's anime ship because she stole it from a con artist. I love that little detail, and she's just like, okay, peace. And she doesn't even try to sneak the key. She just leans past her air quotes mother and the mink making out and takes it. She's not even trying to be sneaky. Speaking of not trying to be sneaky, Josh, go ahead and walk us through your shot, my friend.
Mine's at the 10-minute and 40-second mark. It is the most sci-fi shot of the entire show when they're going through the portal.
What do those ships look like, Josh?
Well, I mean, there's a couple different things. The one right here looks a lot like an X-wing.
Yep. I thought it was the first time I saw this
Oh, yeah.
episode.
This one down here has a little bit of a Slave One vibe to it.
Oh, I didn't even notice that one. Good catch.
Just with the
does.
4 engines on the back.
That left one, that top
that's totally a
left?
TIE fighter.
No,
No,
that's a Dideridex class Romulan warbird.
Thank you.
Jeez.
Thank you.
If it had
This is
sex
like
with a
something
TIE
from Battlestar
fighter
Galactica.
and didn't say the safe word in time and impregnated it and had a baby.
I'm
that would-
serious.
But this is just like, it's just a beautiful shot, and it really makes me sad that we don't get to see the episode yet, that we don't get to see the episode with Ed, where they're flying through the portal. Like, the more of these that I see, I'm like, oh man, like I would have loved to see that whole scene of them trying to, like, hack out of the portal or whatever they did in that episode. It's been a while since I've seen that, but I just remember it'd be cool to dive more into that stuff. So,
well, and also seeing them pass each other, like you could see maybe the VT trucker, the space trucker episode, like just being like a big long Matrix style like chase sequence in one of these tunnels
In hyperspace.
hyperspace. Yeah.
And I love that point. The different rates of acceleration within this freeway in space. It's just it ups the stakes of just being in space and going from place to place. That was beautiful. Josh, if you don't mind, speaking of beautiful, throw up my selection for shot of the show.
Jesse's comes at 42 minutes and 45 seconds.
Okay, so one of the strengths of the show Firefly, and by extension the movie Serenity, is that you really feel like if you were in Serenity, you could walk around and you'd know how to get to everybody's cabin, you'd know how to get to the cockpit, that kind of a thing. With the original series, with the anime version of Bebop, I personally never got a sense of space really outside of that living room that they hang out in with the yellow couch, right? Like, I love that room a lot, and I love the cockpit, but I never really remember feeling that they were connected in a obvious way, or like in a I could walk from here to there sort of a way. There were a lot of shots that were down the hallway looking into this room in the anime. I feel like this translation is just a better version of that, because we're looking down the hallway into that main room, But if you look all the way to the front, that's the cockpit. We now have a sense of the entire scale of this ship. Okay, so off to the sides, we've got the bathroom that Faye gets locked up in. Behind us, we've got Spike's bedroom that he's in. I think it was the last episode when he was looking for his photo of Julia. This, to me, achieves that Firefly level physical lived-in space feeling. And it's one of the things that the live action does better than the anime, in my opinion.
Look at that lighting, too. It's so good.
Yeah.
And
Very noir, very dusky.
I love how Spike is always sitting not correctly on the sofa. He's kind of like the Riker of the crew. Just is that really how you sit down? Okay.
You know, there's been a lot of I see a lot of complaints about the visualizations in this show and how the camera's crooked sometimes and how there's too much going on and stuff. Have you guys watched Daredevil? That show has crooked cameras and too much shit going on constantly. And I feel like that's a Netflix thing to do. Like Netflix has always been that platform to be the testing grounds of shows and to give the small guy a chance to be a new director or something like that. So it's the more that I watch the show, the more I'm like, man, screw you guys. Why are you complaining about a stylized new way of filmmaking? It's not bad by any means. And like with your shot, Jesse, it is a very busy scene. There's a lot of stuff happening in there, and I've heard that from some complaints that it's too busy sometimes in the show. And I'm like, man,
that's
I
a weird
love
complaint.
That.
Yeah,
I
think
know
the visual is one of the strengths of the show. It's so good. I mean, you say sometimes it's crooked or Dutch, as film nerds would say, but like almost every shot is Dutch, to be fair, or it's like super stylized, like that shot you just showed, like framed really nicely. But I mean, that's a translation from the anime. I think the anime was doing that a lot, like
exactly.
And I think that's one of the translations that work.
Exactly. And to me, it's that like, I think that's a great point, Ricky, that it's a weird complaint. Like, because in any other, nerd property, people are like, I want to see all the Easter eggs and all the little details, and I want to absorb every single piece of this. There's people that are like, did you notice the frozen Han Solo in the episode of Firefly? Like, there's that level of stuff here, and people should be all about that. Not
that's
too
what
busy.
People love about Star Wars, like especially the original trilogy. You go back and watch that, and like the frame is just filled with so much sumptuous visual eye candy, and even Mandalorian and Boba Fett. Like, I mean, that was some of the best parts of Boba Fett. Was just like the world around it and filling it with like stormtrooper helmets on stakes and
the lived-in
that's
nature.
how you could tell the difference between Mos Eisley and Mos Espa was the stormtrooper helmets on stakes.
Okay, that's a little too far.
Now that I know that, I'll rewatch it. Maybe I'll like it.
You know what? No. Okay, I'm shutting this down. Let's go to our next segment. Our next segment is called No Finer One-Liner.
Oh man, I wasn't ready.
No Finer One-Liner, as you know, is the second segment of our show where Josh has to not hit the cue every single time. It's become a thing, and I actually hope that he never hits the cue on time again. That having been said, what we do with this segment is we share our favorite lines of dialogue from this week's episode. Let's continue to have our wonderful guest Cameron go first. Josh, if you don't mind.
Fine, forget Faye. Do it for the dumplings.
All right. Take you to Santos, but I want that recipe.
With pleasure.
Ben's up in 5. Get his prep topside.
Dumplings for dinner.
See? Everybody loves a nice story.
Now, in my defense, I was not pulling a Ricky D. I told Josh to get me just that last line, but I appreciate it. It gives it out context, and you get to hear the whole musical bit, which was amazing. So
that was my biggest thing, is I wanted to have all the music in there.
I like the sting.
That ending
That's
on
fair.
there.
Absolutely. You ended it perfectly. Yes. See, everybody loves a nice story, I think is kind of the theme of this episode, and for a lot of the characters in the episode, which are the protagonists of our show. Whitney says it, and of course, that is her philosophy on life, that they just want a nice story. That's why she cons people. She gives them the story they want. She's living a kinky role play fantasy as she's saying it. So she just wants the story, not the reality of what's happening. Now, meanwhile, you've got Faye, who on one hand is kind of rejecting that philosophy and just wants the truth. Her whole search in this episode is to find the truth. She doesn't want some made up story that Whitney or anyone else gave her. She wants truth, whether it's, good or bad, as Whitney says later. But then on the other hand, what I kind of realized about Faye here is she is a character. She's a protagonist without a story. She has her personality, but she has no context of life around her. And so she is searching for a story. And I think that's, she tried on the solo bounty hunter. Now she's trying out a story with the crew. She's trying out this sexual journey she's just starting on. She's trying out being a daughter or a con man with her mother. Like, she just keeps trying on all these different hats and in search of the story to go around her character. And then, it also comes into Spike a lot, who, of course, thinks that his partner, Jet, his only friend right now, just wants some made-up story about his life and not the truth. And so it's just one little line that you think is like, okay, this is telling us about the mom a little bit, but it really, it seeps deeper into the film, the episode around it.
You've also got Vicious believing he's writing one story when Julia is actually writing another story, and she, gave him the bones of his own story.
Absolutely.
I think that's a great point, man, that it fits to every character to a T in this episode. That is an excellent, excellent selection. Josh, if you don't mind, bring up Ricky D's quote.
I have money, disguises, a ship. It's a one-seater, but we'll make it work. Think of the fun we'd have, partnered up, living free, no one telling us what's what. I have to know.
All right, this is where they're in the stash and go. I was mostly focused on Faye and her I have to know moment, because her Whitney character is offering her kind of everything she wants. She's going to team up with somebody. They can go do cons together. She's got some money. She's got the ability to do this. And she's kind of having this dangled in front of her. But nothing compares to knowing who she is. She has that enormous question on her mind, and she's staring right in the face of, she's got a key. She's got a key, and she's going to open it, and she's going to be able to start figuring herself out, and she has to know. There's all these other things that she thinks she wants, but this is what she really needs.
And that's a great point, because it seems like it's kind of the only thing that Faye knows for sure as this version of her character, right? Everything else for her is kind of a big blurry question mark with guns and Russians and money. So it's an excellent pick, and I think it really does get to that core of who she is, and to have it followed up with that moment of, okay, here's who you are. You are still this innocent little girl who is willing to try and give it a go, right? You're gonna do your best, and that's gonna be good enough, dang it. And man, we all know as adults that sometimes your best is not good enough, so that's part of what makes that moment hit. But I think that's a great choice, Ricky D. I don't think I would trade that moment for anything. Josh, go ahead and cue up your quote, my friend.
Darling heart, I wasn't very good to you. I'm not proud of that. It could have been worse.
This is really sweet moment, but deeply unpleasant for me. Because now I must kill you too.
It's just hilarious.
I love that part.
Such a sweet moment, but deeply unpleasant for me. Like, and I can't tell you how many moments I've seen in my life where I'm like, oh, that's sweet.
I'll be honest though, I did not think he was gonna blast the dude next to him right after that.
Oh no.
Poor
Dimitri actually caught me off guard. Like, I was expecting somebody to get shot this whole episode, and Dimitri caught me off guard. I was like, what?
Well, someone had to get shot this episode.
This
So,
is what's
might as well
known
just-
as getting your gun off. Yeah, I was impressed, and yeah, we gotta get Tyson Ritter and more stuff. I think, you guys.
Mhm.
I was I'm still blown away. I'm gonna tell everyone about that. Do you remember the guy from All American Rejects? Like, he's a pretty good actor.
that is how you talk. So
All my little emo friends, they're gonna love that. Here comes
We'll-
another 1,000.
We'll get them to watch Cowboy
signatures for
Bebop.
hashtag
Absolutely,
Cowboy
let's
Bebop.
do it.
and then conversely, they'll watch Futurama with Cameron and Ricky D. There's a whole plan.
Dominoes.
All right, Josh, if you don't mind, please play my quote from this week.
What do you want me to do about this?
Figure it out, Spike.
You expect me to deal with the world's most notorious arms dealer alone while you watch your daughter's recital?
She's got the lead.
That's fair.
Less than 2 seconds between she's got the lead and that's fair. I counted. And this is we spoke about this a little bit earlier, but this is so essential to Jet and Spike, right? We in any version, we know that they don't know everything about each other, but they know that they can count on each other to get the job done. And I wouldn't be me if I didn't pick that and then bring up Ricky D and Josh and Cameron. You guys, thank you for being here with me, for helping me put this together. I know I can count on you guys to get the job done. And I think the bro-roddery, which is like camaraderie between bros, is what pushed me to this selection this week. Because, man, just having somebody that you can, like, we've talked about before, we have this TMA group chat. And if you make a podcast with Twist My Arm, you're in the group chat, and we joke at each other and make fun of each other and bag on each other all week long before the shows happen. And it is just an absolute blast. And I really love having that shorthand with you guys where I can go, hey, here's a thing, here's how I feel about it, and then I can predict the reactions that are going to come in. It's a lot of fun. And if you've ever been to my Twitter feed, you know that Cameron and I can speak in shorthand. We do it with GIFs, we do it with memes. I think it's a sign of a good relationship to be able to communicate quickly, effectively, and get things done. And I feel that with all three of you here on the screen with me, so I got to say thank you. I do also have to say hello and welcome to our friend Sincera. He made it. Thank you for being here, man. You're almost at the end, which, if I'm not mistaken, is how you thought this would go down a couple weeks back. You said I might be able to slide into the end of an episode of Sudden But Inevitable. Speaking of our friend Sincera, if you look in the bottom left of your screen on YouTube, you will see Cameron holding up a very good-looking, very shiny Vera pin.
It's all mirrored backwards. I don't know how to hold it. Man.
But that pin is
Professional.
courtesy of Sincera's shop, which, of course, we will provide you with a nice little shiny link to in the show notes.
He was in
Gentlemen.
one of the Quest Me episodes, and it's in the show notes there.
Sincera is what we call a friend of the network here at the Twist My Arm podcast network.
A network
Gentlemen-
regular. That's what I labeled Phil in our.
Oh, yes. Extended Podern family.
Yes.
I believe that is it for our segments, gentlemen, except we do need to turn in a rating for this episode and do some quick math and slap a grade on this sucker. So let's have our friend Cameron go first. Cameron, set the tone and establish the curve.
Okay. I remembered one more note that I wanted to make, which is going back to the Playboy. I'm sorry, but not the Playboy so much, but Faye's sexual journey. I do love just kind of how casual she is, like, oh, I just had sex with someone. It was someone of my own gender. That's pretty cool, but I think I like these guys, these leather daddies too. And just her whole attitude of suddenly exploring this new kind of sexual playground in front of her just reminds me of someone maybe being forced to watch, I don't know, Firefly for the first time and being like, what other space cowboy westerns are there? What else? Give me more. I'm ready. I'm ready to dive in. I don't know if I'm a Mal girl or am I a Spike girl, but either way, it was exciting. It was a good vibe on that.
And I'm glad that you went back to that really quickly. We have to throw this up in the chat. Cam, would you like to explain very quickly where the pin came from?
The pin came from, I showed up at my house and my mom threw it at me and I said, oh, hey, it's from Steve and it's a cool Firefly pin. Did Steve just like send me something out of the blue? That would be awesome. She goes, no, I got it for you. I said, Mom, do you know that this is like a Twitter friend of mine? Like, did you order from? Why did you get it? She's like, Cam, you sent this to me. You sent me a link and said, look at this. It's cool. And I said, I did. And it's still a mystery. I've asked Steve. I've checked all my emails, all my tweets, my messages, my Facebook messages, everything. I don't know why, how she got a hold of it. The fates just aligned so that I would get an awesome Jane pin from an awesome artist.
I probably tagged your mom in a Follow Friday on Twitter at some point inadvertently. It's a thing that I've been known to do, so I apologize for that.
Just
I
going around
also
tagging
might have
people's
tagged your
moms.
mom.
Joe Piscopo.
Twitter.
Joe Piscopo.
I'm serious. Our friend Phil says, okay, that's amazing. So now that this is difficult, Cameron, please.
Yes, I'm sorry.
You're
I was
rating-
supposed to
you're
rate
rating
an
for this episode, my friend.
This is a great episode, guys. Again, I think it's now my favorite episode of the show, and of a show that I love. 9. I'm going to give it a 9. Half a point missing for that weird title credit sequence, and half a point for no Ein. Otherwise, it's an amazing episode. Faye is not only, I think, better than the anime Faye. I think she is one of my favorite modern TV characters, maybe favorite TV characters of all time. She just brings the screen to life whenever she shows up. Every time I turned on a new episode, I was looking forward to what Faye was going to be up to today. And this being such a Faye-centric episode, of course, it's going to be highly rated.
Yeah, I don't know that I could disagree with that. Josh, what have you got?
9.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the spreadsheet. He actually did have a 9. He's not just saying that because Cameron said it. So, Ricky D, my friend.
I was gonna go 9.5 just because Cameron said 9, but I'm gonna stay at 9.
You can raise the rating.
Well, I think I'm going to be the naysayer this week. I'm going with 7. This one didn't quite hit me that hard. I don't have any major complaints about it, but well, I guess it was missing Ein. That could be a major complaint.
That's huge
But
for you.
it didn't quite click for me. 7 out of 10.
That's fair. And the thing that I think is important to remember about the ratings is that we don't have like an official, here's, like running total or anything, but we do the rating because I would like to create at least the illustration of the fact that we are not just a bunch of fanboys here. Like, I could see where
Last
you could
week
listen
would
to our
totally tell you
show-
that.
Well, but I could see where you could listen to this show and think that, right? But like, I have addressed before that I'd be okay with that because I feel like there's so much negativity about this show out there that it would be fine to have a purely positive show. But I don't think that we really are that, and I would like to point that out one more time. So thank you, Ricky D. That all having been said, I also put a 9 for this episode on the spreadsheet. So that's it's not a like thing against Ricky D. It is an actual real life 9.
So Ricky
And it's-
ruins the rating
It's
again.
for it's for all the same reasons that Cameron said, where it's just like, man, this really is like when you sit down and analyze it, even like to watch for, say, I don't know, like a podcast. There's nothing that you can pull out of it, and even Ricky was saying there's nothing you can pull out of it that's like, oh, that was awful. It just wasn't Ricky's cup of tea, which is totally fine. And I think that's one of the most acceptable arguments that I have heard about this show is it's not for me. That doesn't mean it's bad, but it's not for me. If that's how you feel, cool. I'm good with that. But don't tell me it's bad because I don't like it, because that's just incorrect. Now,
Also, a 9 is a scientifically accurate rating for this episode because no Ein. 9.
9. It is. Phil just pointed that out in the chat.
Oh, I
no
didn't even say.
Ein.
I'm sorry, Phil.
You get a
And
no.
you know-
It wasn't the exact same point, but all of that leads us to the math that gives us an 85% for this episode out of 100, or an 8.5 if you like it that way. That's pretty good. That's a B. That's a solid B for an episode that is just, I mean, Phil says synchronicity. Exactly.
Yeah.
This is a solid B for an episode that I think if you, I think I brought it up in the first episode. If you only had one episode, no, it was episode 4. If you only had one episode of the show to get somebody into it and they were skeptical, you could pick episode 4, which is the tree grenades. I think this might also be one that you could do just because it's so like enjoyable, but I would still stick with the other one just to give you a little more backstory. But I feel like there's enough in this to draw somebody in and make them go, okay, I got to go back to episode 1.
It's
and
a good
figure out
one
what I want.
Because again, like on the surface, it plays very sitcom-y, but as we've said, like you dig a little bit and there's a lot more going on.
Yeah, and I really feel like that's the essence of Cowboy Bebop anyway.
I was
right?
just going to say
It's-
the same thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it
the whole
has-
show.
It has so much surface level trope
Right.
going on, that you have to go like another layer down to find what's really there. And yeah, I love it in the anime, and I love it in this adaptation.
I didn't want to spend too much time talking about the show as a whole, but and not that a lot of people are going to listen to this who haven't watched past like the first episode or so, but I mean, I just the whole thing about like people not giving it a chance. I really think it just needed time and for people to give it a chance, because the first episode, the first time I watched it, I admit I was kind of on the fence. I was a 50-50 on the premiere. And I thought it got a little bit better with each episode, and I thought it hit its stride by 4. And then I went back and rewatched some episodes to prepare for today. And I rewatched one, and I was getting ready to like, okay, here's these parts I bumped on. Here's the parts I don't like. Maybe I'll go in there and tell those guys why episode 1 isn't that good. It was fine. It was great. I had no problems. I think it's just a show that takes you a while to get into because it is so stylized, like we were talking about before. And you kind of have to adjust to it. But once you've adjusted to it, it's so good, guys. Hashtag bring it back, you mother effing fucker hunts.
And I think the thing for me is that it's like if you would have not dropped every episode at the same time, if this were a weekly release, like for example Peacemaker, and people had time in between episodes to get hyped and analyze and rewatch episodes and think about them, and I could have made a podcast that would push people into it. I really think the show would have done better numbers for Netflix. I don't know what their cutoff was, but I really think that it would have benefited from that kind of model. Personally,
I agree. It needed word of mouth, and it needed time for people to adjust and give it a chance. Yeah.
Speaking of word of mouth, if the good listeners and viewers out there, Josh, would like to get more Josh in their viewing and listening days, where would they go on the internet to do that?
Man, at this point, so we actually just had our last episode of Quest Me yesterday. That'll come out anywhere you listen to podcasts, probably tomorrow evening. We'll have our season finale of Quest Me. But other than that, Sudden but Inevitable is about the only place you can find me right now. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can find me at Twist My Armcast, Facebook, Twist My Arm Podcast, or Instagram, Twist My Arm Podcast. If you want to write me an email or anything, you can go to our website, twistmyarm.net, and that has all of our different shows: Best Flicks with Ricky D, Sudden but Inevitable, Marvel Canon Madness, the original Twist My Arm, the Intrepid DM. There's all sorts of content on that website. But right now, I'm in the middle of some extreme life changes that have been happening for months now, and I think, man, I hope to God that I'm at the near end of it, and that after the next month or two, I'm going to be settled, and I'm going to be able to focus on like what I actually want to focus on when it comes to the network and the podcast and stuff. It's just been kind of a rough 8 months, and like trying to do my own personal life stuff on top of, I should say that vice versa. I should say trying to do podcast things on top of my own personal life stuff. But let's be honest, the podcast is my life. So having to deal with side things is a little obnoxious to me. So hopefully whenever all that's settled, I would say April, I'm hoping to have something solidified and be settled into my new whatever.
Find your story, Josh. Find your story.
And everybody likes a nice story. Now, really quickly, I'm going to get to you, Ricky, I promise. Really quickly, Josh. I know that you will be settled and you will be making the shows that you want to be making. I have no doubt about that. And what he was saying is true. There is the real life aspect, right? You can't make an independent podcast without having a real life on the side. And there is some version of me that is like, is it okay for me to tell Josh, like, watch this show and do some like work, right? Because like, dude, I don't want to be the person adding another thing on your list of a million. You know what I mean? So it's like,
oh yeah,
I'm glad that you clarified that for everybody and explained how it is, because it's a thing that I have been feeling. But I know that all of the guys here at the Twist My Arm Network are here for you, and we are waiting and excited and proud of you at all times, and we can't wait to see what you do next. Ricky D, if the good folks out there would like to get more Ricky D in their days, what should they do?
Well, speaking of Quest Me, I was a part of the season finale of Quest Me, so make sure you look that up on Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, all of those guys. I'm also here every Friday night. I love being part of a Sudden but Inevitable crew. And you can also find me on Best Flicks. I'm going to be putting out a new episode this weekend. Just I'm pretty sure you guys know the thing. Just talking about movies, talking about my favorite little parts, making some recommendations. And you can also follow me on Twitter at BestFlixRickyD.
I really like the moment that we had on Twitter earlier this week where we were talking about what was it? I can't now. I feel bad because I can't remember it. It was the first thing that you had tweeted in a while, and I was like, "Look at this, Ricky D coming alive, folks." I'll put that in post. My bad. Cameron, our wonderful guest, and actually. I watched most of that Quest Me episode last night. I wasn't able to be there, but I watched it, and dude, it was a good episode. And Quest Me is the genesis of the Josh, Ricky D from Best Flicks with Ricky D and Captain Boot Scoot Dream Team, as we call
Dream
them here
Team.
at Twist My Arm. That out of the way, Cameron, my friend. If the good folks would like to get more Cameron in their days, what should they do?
Sure, yeah, you can find me at my podcast, Green Shirt, A Newbie's Trek Through the Next Generation, where I am making my way through Star Trek The Next Generation, one episode at a time, with my slightly more knowledgeable co-hosts. We are halfway through Season 5, and it's good stuff. Our friends Jesse and Josh have both appeared, and there's a lot of good stuff to be heard on that. You can find us at GreenShirt87 on Twitter, Green Shirt Podcasts on Facebook, and you can just look up Green Shirt on all the pod chasers. You'll find us. It'll be worth your while. There's also another project coming up, but maybe I'll let our good friend Jesse from the Sudden But Inevitable podcast talk about that.
Oh, thank you, Cameron. I appreciate it deeply. Anybody who has listened or watched Sudden But Inevitable in the past knows that deep down in the grossest parts of my body, I am a Trekkie. I will always be a Trekkie, and there's nothing that can stop that. You will also note that I am kind of the lonely Trekkie on the show, not in a negative way. I'm not mad at Josh and Ricky D, but I know that Star Trek isn't
watch
their
all sorts of
first
Star
love.
Trek. What?
I know that it's not your first love, and I'm not mad at you for it. Ricky D, it might be your last love, and I'm not mad at you for that. But I have had just so much fun every time that I go to Green Shirt, and Cameron has had so much fun every time he comes here, and we love having him on our show, that sort of a thing. And we got together and we talked with producer John T. Bolds, who you may also remember from this current season, and we started realizing, dude, we all love Star Trek. Cameron has a Star Trek podcast, but there is a bunch of new Star Trek coming out that Cameron can't talk about on that show because it's about the next generation. Now,
not only is it new Star Trek, but based on the poster, it seems to be a space western.
It does
Star
seem
Trek
to be a space
So,
western.
Who would you combine to talk about that?
It's one of those like serendipitous moments of I love Star Trek, you guys love Star Trek, I do space westerns, we all do podcasts. How can we make something fun out of the newest series in the Star Trek family, which of course is Strange New Worlds? And the way that we think we're going to do that is with a very cool brand new podcast called Open Pike Night. Josh, if you don't mind, Open Pike Night is a podcast that we have envisioned to be a community sounding board for Strange New Worlds, the newest Star Trek show. If you are watching Strange New Worlds, or if you're excited for Strange New Worlds, or if you're nervous about it, tell us about it. Send us an audio clip. We want to put you on our first episode. We want to let the community speak through us. It is an open pike. Come speak at the open pike. We are going to be covering the episodes of Strange New Worlds. I believe there are 10 in the first season. We're not 100% on the number of episodes or when the first trailer will drop. This is all very preliminary. All we know is that it's going to happen. We need your help, and we cannot wait to bring you Open Pike Night. Cameron, is there anything I forgot to say?
I mean, I think you nailed it. We really want to involve the community. We want to make it a place where people can come to kind of get a feel for the pulse of the Star Trek community on this new show, Strange New Worlds. I have no idea what to expect from it, so I'm excited to dive in.
And the thing that, I think is most important to mention is, as an open pike, that means that we need guests.
Yes.
If you are interested, if you run a Star Trek podcast, if you run a Space Western podcast with me and you want to talk Star Trek for some reason, if you are out there and I said Star Trek and you went, I want to talk about that, then what you should do is open up your favorite email composition program and send an email, maybe even an audio clip, 90 seconds or less, to openpikenight@gmail.com, and be sure to follow at OpenPike on Twitter to get your submissions in before our first episode, which again drops whenever the first trailer drops. So it's totally
Or thereabouts.
Yeah, it's an entirely spontaneous, fun podcast. So be on the lookout. And of course, Cameron and I will be pimping those all over our socials. And for me,
sure.
those socials are Twitter @SuddenButt, it's Instagram @SuddenButtInevitable Podcast. You can go to twistmyarm.net/SBI to get everything for Sudden But Inevitable all in one place. Gentlemen, I think that might be it for the evening. Is there anything else that we have to get to before we go? Josh?
No, not
Ricky
that I
D.
can. No.
My friend Cameron?
Dry pontoons.
For the Cameron Dry Pontoon Harrison, ladies and gentlemen, for the sign off this evening. Let's go Cameron, Ricky, Josh, myself. So for Sudden But Inevitable, I have been Jesse.
Bye, Mom. Cameron.
This is Ricky D from Best Flicks with Ricky D.
I'm Josh.
And I got to say one more time, thank you to everybody in the live chat. Sincera, Callie D, Rona D, Philip, you guys, Roy, you've all been wonderful. Thank you for being here. And we will see you, interplanetary sanctioned vigilante.